Shingi here again. I'm here with part 2 of our 5-part series around the keys to living a healthy life. So in the first part we talked about the key of creating a personalized health plan to really get at what works specifically for you as an individual. Now today I want to talk about something a little bit different, and it may be an unsettling topic for a lot of people, and that is how you want to die. It is a very unsettling topic, but it's also really important because the decisions that we make in our 20s and our 30s and our 40s will accumulate over time, and they play a really big role in the quality of our lives in the last few years of our time on this earth. So I'll start with a story that a good friend of mine told. And this is about a grandfather of his that was in his mid-90s. And towards the end, there were a lot of scares. They had to rush him to the hospital for this condition or that. There was a lot of fear that this may be the end. And as a result of that constant fear of him dying, there's a lot of stress and anxiety that was not only with the grandfather, but with the rest of the family. Now, my friend told me about a story about when he was in a car driving his grandfather somewhere on a Sunday, and his grandfather turned to him and asked him, and he said, "What do you think about this situation? What do you think about my health and what's happening right now?" And my friend told his grandfather, "If it's time to go, it's your time to go. Once you accept that, all of the stress and all of the anxiety around this process will disappear." Now, he said that his grandfather had some reaction, didn't really pursue the conversation, but over time he could detect a certain amount of change in his grandfather's behavior. And his grandfather recently passed away. It was late last year that he passed. But the way my friend tells it is, in his grandfather, he saw a noticeable change in his attitude and the level of stress that his grandfather carried around. There was no longer a fear of this inevitable event. Instead, there was a greater appreciation that, look, I'm in my 90s. That's a very, very long life, right? Well above the average life expectancy. I have grandkids, starting to have great-grandkids. I have a family around me. I have all of these things that are the markers of somebody that has lived a life that is full, that has been meaningful, that has created value for many, many people who have all around me, who are there to be with me when the time does come. For me, that was very impactful. I've had grandparents that have passed way too young. In fact, actually, I don't have any living grandparents anymore. I think the oldest one died in her mid-80s. The rest were younger than that. Heart disease was actually the biggest problem for 2 of the 3 that passed when they were younger. But to my point about these decisions that we make early in our life do accumulate. Now, granted, there are circumstances and environmental conditions that we may not have control over. So a lot of the times, our quality of life is dependent upon factors that are out of our hands. But there are things that we can control for that have an immediate impact on our health. We talked about earlier, what are the things that we can do to prevent chronic disease in terms of healthy eating, in terms of exercise, etc. But I think when we talk about something like the process of death, I think we also really need to talk about the health of our social relationships and to what extent we're integrated into a community, a healthy community, one in which everybody, regardless of their age, has some kind of value that they can contribute and they can feel a part of. And I think that's a piece that, especially in modern day United States, modern day society, not just in the US, but anywhere that's industrialized, that, it's a very consumer-driven economy, we see a lot of things around the fragmentation of family, where the nuclear family is now the core unit, and it's usually a nuclear family that's separated from the rest of their family by hundreds or even thousands of miles. families spread all over the planet or spread all over a country. And so we don't fill that void that's left by being separated from our family with community, or at least most of us don't. And that leads us to a situation in which there is a large degree of social isolation. There is a large degree where we do feel disconnected from something. And it may be a feeling that we don't really understand or we can't really vocalize, but it's this emptiness, this loneliness that we have. And it really comes down to the lack of healthy, fulfilling social interactions. And that need for those social interactions, that need for the dopamine, the oxytocin that comes from the physical contact, the hugging, the relationships, the positive interactions, the work interactions that we have with people that are close to us. If we don't have these things, our bodies try to compensate. And that's where we go towards these unhealthy eating habits or these exercise patterns that lead us down this dark path. So, in short, this is another way of thinking about when we create this personalized plan, what works for us. We also have to think about what are the long-term consequences. And I know that it's difficult for a number of reasons. Death is a very uncertain, unknowable thing. It can be scary. It can be frightening. And especially when you're young, you see yourself as invincible, that death is a far, far way off. I mean, if your body's still developing or you're still growing as a human being, it's very difficult to think about dying. And in fact, it's almost it's almost contrary to what we're supposed to be doing, especially as a young person. But the reason why I mention it is because the quality of life that we want to have at that age is dependent upon the decisions that we make today. And I would say that it should be a goal for all of us to get to a point where we can say, honestly, okay, I'm ready to go. I have a family, I have a community, I have this work that I've done, I have all of these things that I can point to and I can say, you know what, I put my heart and soul into my life and into the work that I did, into the relationships that I had, into the people that I loved, and I can see the fruits of that. And I can see that, I'm passing the torch on to another generation or to a whole other set of new human beings that are born into this earth. And they're going to do something great as well. I think when we get to that kind of point, then we can leave this earth in peace. But in order to get to that point, there are a number of decisions that we have to make years and decades in advance that lead us there. In terms of building relationships, in terms of building communities, in terms of focusing our time and energy on things that we love, on experiences that will help us grow as individuals, that will give pleasure to ourselves and to the people that we love. I think if we can make that a priority in our lives, then we can counter some of the weird things that happen to us in our modern society that is very isolating, that is very me-focused. But if we can get back to that sense of building those communities, then we actually have something to look forward to as we get older in terms of seeing the effects of the great stuff that we did. So that's why I think that it's really important to think about when looking to transform your life, looking to live a healthier life, to think about not just how you want to live your life, but also how you want to die. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to listen to and see part 3, subscribe to our video. Check some of the links below for some more information. And I'll see you next time.